I'd like to begin by asking those who are present and those of you maybe wherever you are, if you will, let's honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. And would you, those who are present, stand, place your hand over your heart, and let us say together as the flag. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Please join me in a brief prayer. Eternal God, we thank you for this evening and the people of the city of San Antonio and of this, the Democratic Party, and of the democratic system of our country and of our city and our state. Please guide and direct all that is said and done, that it is pleasing in your sight, so that your will may be done through these candidates, these judges, and these, your representatives. All things, it is in your precious name we pray. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor, so much for having us in your home. At this time, we want to I want to address the audience really quick. As you know, we are live streaming. We have asked everyone to please silence their phones as we move forward this evening. So for the last 20 years, County Judge Nelson Wolff has done an excellent job leading our community. He's endured many challenges, especially managing COVID, as you all know. He works diligently as he plans and he finds dollars necessary for long-term infrastructure and economic development. So we're here this evening to thank Nelson Wolff for his lifelong practice here in Bexar County. He is retiring and he leaves big shoes to fill. But we are excited to present to you tonight 4 Democratic candidates who are vying to succeed him in the March 2022 Democratic primary. They are on the ballot in this order. We have Gerardo Ponce, Ina Minjares, Ivelisse Mesa Gonzalez, and Peter Sakai. You have the opportunity this evening to hear from these candidates who are going to answer a few questions. These questions have not been given to the candidates, and so we will ask them at this time, and you will hear their answers as I hear them. Bexar County has hosted this event as a public service to the residents of Bexar County so that you can best determine which candidate that you will vote for March 1st of 2022. The audience will have the opportunity to ask questions. We know we may go short on time. We hope we do not, but if we do not, we will be taking questions from the audience and or Facebook Live through the Bexar County Democratic Party. Index cards have been given to those who have been in attendance this evening. Candidates will be called in ballot order. Thus, that means Mr. Ponce will go first, followed by Ms. Minjares, Mrs. Gonzalez, and Mr. Peter Sakai. Our timekeeper is Ian Strauss, and he will hold up cards and he will explain the process in just one moment. Candidates will begin by an introduction of themselves, and they will have a minute and a half to introduce themselves. And they are asked to provide an overview of their experience and their talents. We will then spend about an hour or so with question and answer, followed by giving each of the candidates 1 minute to respond, followed by a closing by each of the candidates for 2 minutes. So you will have a 2-minute close. So we're now ready to begin. We're excited to hear from each one of our Democratic candidates for county judge, and I hope you'll enjoy this evening as we listen and ask the questions that are going to help us guide us in picking the candidate of our choice. So at this time, Ian, if you will just, from your seat, if you will just show the cards and explain to the candidates what you will do, sir. Thank you, Mr. Strauss. And at this time, we are going to start with opening, which is 1.5 minutes, and we will start with Mr. Gerardo Ponce. Mr. Ponce.
Okay, ready?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ponce,
Okay.
you were.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Democratic Party for
One second. Jim, the mic is on. I'm sorry, Mr. Ponce. Please make sure that the button is on, sir.
Is that on?
Oh, it's on now. Hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's on now. If you'll speak into the mic.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the Democratic Party for hosting this. I'm excited to be here. Hello? Okay. I'd like to thank the audience and people at home that are taking the time to watch this.
Ms. Mijares, is yours on? We'll start Mr. Ponce once again in just 1 second. I'll give you your full 1.5 minutes. Just want to make sure all mics are on. Please forgive us, everybody out there.
It keeps going off.
It's on. Okay. It's on.
I know.
We'll get you another cover, Ms. Mijares. There's some. Hot green.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody, the people at home also for being with us today. I am Gerard Ponce. I'm running for Bexar County Judge. I'm strongly against bigoted hate such as anti-Semitism and crimes against other cultures and ethnicities. I'm a supporter of women, families, seniors, persons with disabilities, the Reentry Council, and will strive for fairness for all. My #1 platform goal is to influence reduction of Bexar County's outrageously high homeowner property taxes. As county judge, I will work diligently to promote and improve economic and workforce development throughout Bexar County. As an ardent supporter of the emerging local tech industry, business, job diversity, the arts, I desire to improve county services such as highway and flood control infrastructure. During my 17 years in the Bexar County court system, I helped institute the Juvenile Justice Court, DWI Task Force, and Family Violence Courts, which paved the way for establishing the specialty courts. My skills, talents, knowledge, and numerous long-term relationships will enable me to be fair and comprising county executive for International Metropolitan Area, your Bexar County Judge. Thank you for your support and your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. We are going to change the, we purchased mic covers, and I'm so glad we did. Give us just 1 second. We are being COVID safe. No pressure, right? No pressure. Oh, you opened. Oh, it's open already? Thank you, Nicolette. Mrs. Mijares, we now ask you for your opening.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here this evening. And again, thank you to the Bexar County Democratic Party for having this very important forum. I think it's so important for voters to have the opportunity to hear from us and what our platform is. My name is Ina Minjares, and I am a proud graduate of the University of Notre Dame and St. Mary's Law School, and I have been a practicing licensed attorney for over 20 years. I currently serve as the state representative for House District 124 in the near west side of San Antonio, and I have served in that capacity since 2015. I have had the ability to get specialized training as a state representative, serving as the one Bexar County representative on the Appropriations Committee, which handles the budget for the state of Texas. And I have also served on critical areas like human services, as well as urban affairs and land and resource management. I believe with the skill set that I have received and the leadership roles that I have played at the Capitol, I am ready to come home and lead Bexar County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Minjares. And now, Mrs. Gonzalez, you have a minute and a half, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to the Bexar County Democratic Party for hosting us today, and thanks to everybody watching from home. My name is Ivalis Mesa Gonzalez. I am born and raised here in Bexar County. I'm that little girl that grew up going to labor union events with my parents. I'm that little girl that attended her first senatorial convention in a stroller. I'm that little girl that couldn't wait for Fiesta to get here so I could attend day parades with my family. I'm a proud graduate of Incarnate Word High School. I received my bachelor's from UTSA and my law degree from St. Mary's. My husband and I, Manuel, are raising our two children, Emma and Joaquin, in Bexar County. I worked in community development for the world champion San Antonio Spurs, and then served in government affairs for the San Antonio River Authority. I have spent all of my time giving back to my community anytime that I can. I've spent the last 4 years at the executive level of local government, serving as the chief of staff to Mayor Ron Nirenberg, balancing a $3.1 billion budget, working 365 days a year, 24/7, to ensure that we are providing the best basic services for our residents. I have a passion for public service and a mother's drive to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to ask that each candidate speak directly into the mic. Mr. Sakai, you have a minute and a half for your open.
Good evening. My name is Judge Peter Sakai, and I want to thank the Bexar County Democratic Party, and I want to thank Reverend Mitchell from the Mount Zion Baptist Church. I worshiped here when the Most Reverend Claude Black was here. He was one of the leading icons of the African American community, and he's sorely missed. I have been your district court judge for the last 26 years. As a district court judge, I've been your local administrative judge for the district courts and administrative judge for the children's court. As a judge, I've protected children, empowered families, and improved the system. I've been in charge of multi-million-dollar budgets for the district courts, for the children's court. I've worked with Commissioner's Court for the judiciary. I've created innovative programs at the courthouse, the Family Drug Court and the Early Childhood Court, also known as Baby Court. Within that period of time, I believe I have established experience, wisdom, depth of knowledge, character and reputation. And I've made one of the toughest decisions in regards to children and families in regards to parental rights. That's what the next county judge needs to be prepared to confront and resolve the tough issues, and to have that background, that experience, that wisdom, that depth of knowledge that's going to be required to deal with these tough issues. COVID-19 has taught us that we have tough issues to face. I am ready to be your next leader for Bexar County.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. And for all of you watching and those that are in the audience, I've already spoken with our candidates. I normally would address Mr. Sakai as judge and representative as representative, but for the matters of what we are doing here today, I will be addressing everyone as Mr. and Mrs. And so now we are going to go ahead and move into the forum. And so we are going to start, we started first with Mr. Ponce. So we will start now with Mrs. Minjares. And our question to you is, what do you think the greatest issue facing Bexar County is, and how will you address it?
Bexar County has a number of critical needs at the moment. Of course, we know the COVID pandemic was horrible on our community, but it really shined the light on many problems that were ignored for generations. I think the biggest problem has been our generational poverty that has never been dealt with and now cannot be ignored. We need to ensure that there is equal opportunity, that there is educational opportunity, vocational opportunity. If we lift our neighbors and our community out of poverty, San Antonio is successful and our state of Texas is successful. But then and there, we know what the disparities are, and COVID-19 shone the light on them, and we must address that.
Thank you, ma'am. And now, Mrs. Gonzalez, I will ask you the same. What do you think is the greatest issue facing Bexar County, and how will you address it?
So I think there's a number of issues facing Bexar County, and I want to address those issues head on. As a leader, I want to make sure that we have the right folks at the table to address issues that we saw during COVID. We saw domestic violence rate go up. We saw our mental health problems rise. And those are issues that we need to face head on. They don't happen with just the county judge. They happen with community partnership. So working with our nonprofits, working with our commissioner's court, our elected officials in the courthouse, to ensure that we are facing those problems, working to address the needs that came about through COVID, whether it was housing scarcity, the digital divide, expanding our public health system. Those are all things that we saw front and center that we can't unsee, right? And so to make sure that the court and myself have those top of mind going into this new administration is a priority.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. And now, Mr. Sakai, what do you think is the greatest issue facing Bexar County, and how will you address it?
From my 26 years as district court judge, I had to deal with the children and families that came into court. And it's evident, the disparity, the inequity, the racial injustice that occurs in our community. And what we're going to have to confront are those basic issues. The platform that I will bring to Commissioner's Court are economic development. It's education and infrastructure, and it's all interrelated. And so we can't treat these as silos, and that's what I'm going to bring. I'm going to bring open and transparent government to deal with these specific issues. We know that families, it's affordable housing, it's daycare, it's entry to workforce, it's dealing with our justice system to make sure that we employ the principles of restorative justice. It's understanding that we have issues of domestic and family violence that I've had to address with the Clowder Commission Domestic Violence that I set up as district court judge. I know these issues. I know how to put families back together. That's been my success as a district judge, and that's what I will bring to the county judge and the commissioner's court.
Mr. Ponce, I will ask you the same question. What do you think is the greatest issue facing Bexar County, and how will you address it?
First of all, I believe that the commissioner's court, the county judge, should follow a business order. And I believe that the most important issue facing Bexar County is the traffic along 1604, the traffic along 281, the traffic along I-35. I think we need to address that. We need to go ahead and widen the roads and make sure that traffic flows, and to keep people out of traffic and into their homes to spend time with their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. So the next question will be asked first to Mrs. Gonzalez. Homeowners bear the brunt of taxes, while commercial properties are historically undervalued. How will you correct this inequity?
Working with our Bexar County Appraisal District, that is going to be a priority for us and Commissioner's Court and for myself. Making sure that our homeowners have a transparent process as to what their rights are as property owners. I think it starts with communicating to these property owners, having an open door to what their needs are, any questions that they have, that they understand the appraisal process that they're going through, and they're not surprised by anything that they see, and that we have options for them to not have to come to the courthouse or the appraisal district to answer their questions. Make sure that we can communicate to them via computer, via digitally. That'll be my focus.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. Mr. Sakai?
You know
Home-
what? I'm sorry.
Homeowners bear the brunt of taxes while commercial properties are historically undervalued. How will you correct this inequity?
Well, one of the misunderstandings is that the tax appraisal district comes under the comptrollers, and obviously the tax assessor collector gets blamed, commissioner's court gets blamed for the appraisal process, and that is a legislative issue. That what we need to do is we have to ask the legislature, and as county judge, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to break these silos. I've got to deal with the Bexar County delegation to say we've got to create a fair system of appraisals. The other thing is to recognize that the biggest tax entity on our taxes is the school districts. And that's an issue that, again, we're going to have to get legislative changes in order to create a fair appraisal, to get a fair distribution. We've got basically leadership in Austin that has taken away the funding for schools to take it over to general revenue. That's the reason why the local government has had to suffer with unfair appraisals and inequity in appraisals. And these are really complex, tough issues that are going to have to be dealt with.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. Mr. Ponce, I will ask you the same question. Homeowners bear the brunt of taxes while commercial properties are historically undervalued. How will you correct this inequity?
Okay, first of all, I think it's horrible that a homeowner has a tax appraiser of $150,000. They go to sell their home and it's only valued at $50,000. Something is totally wrong with that. I think we need to start a de-evaluation program to, I know that this is a legislative issue, but I think we need to start a de-evaluation program on people's homes, especially the ones that can't pay their taxes. We need to go and start a de-evaluation program to get them to keep their home, be able to pay lower taxes, and leave the home behind like they do, like they want to do for their children, rather than it being taken back by the tax issue and them owning taxes on their homes, and so they get their homes foreclosed.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. Mrs. Mijares, homeowners bear the brunt of taxes while commercial properties are historically undervalued. How will you correct this inequity?
And because of skyrocketing property taxes, so many people get priced out of their homes. And that is what's causing such a critical housing shortage and crisis in Bexar County. And as what's been stated earlier, this is a legislative issue. However, as a member of the Bexar County delegation, I have those relationships now with each of the members of the Bexar County delegation to work on that policy to start immediately. They start session in January 2023. So now is the time to start working on that policy issue and to actually do something meaningful, to get the analytics, to get the data, to do what we need to do to ensure that our delegation's ready to go with that policy to get it moving through the House and the Senate.
Thank you, Mrs. Mijares. Now, the questions that are being posed are questions that I have come up with and asked, and haven't shown our candidates or anyone these questions. I did, for the sake of involving community, I have asked a few community activists and leaders to ask a question that I don't even know what they're going to ask you. A few of them could not be here tonight due to the pandemic and some other issues. But I do have with us a question that will be asked from a community activist, Patricia Castillo. Mrs. Castillo, may you come up, please? This question will be first asked to Mr. Sakai.
Good evening. What are your plans to further strengthen the city-county relationship as we continue to work at preventing and intervening in domestic violence? And my second part of that question is, how will you ensure transparency to access data as we struggle to effectively respond to the scourge of domestic violence?
Thank you for that question, Patricia. Obviously, as district court judge, one of the things I created right before the pandemic was the Collaborative Commission on Domestic Violence. You know why? Because at a town hall meeting with Congressman Castro and Congressman Dockett, the voice of the victims was evident, was not being heard. And we heard it loud and clear. Please respect us. And that's the reason why I created a collaborative commission, which is my model, to put all the stakeholders together, city, county, federal, state officials, to bring in law enforcement, bring in the district attorney's office, to bring in the nonprofit communities, to bring in the faith-based community, the churches, to join in, to deal and confront with the issues of domestic violence. It is going to have to break down silos. We've got to get city, county government to work together on these issues. And I'm proud to say that the city has made a commitment to deal with domestic and family violence. The county has just added up $3 million. And that's because we use the data, the metrics, the analytics to show what the needs are in our community. We must deal with domestic and family violence if we're going to save our community and save our children.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Sakai. And now we are going to move to Mr. Ponce.
Mr. Ponce, what are your plans to further strengthen the city-county relationship as we continue to work at preventing and intervening in domestic violence? And the second part to that question is, how will you ensure transparency and access to data as we struggle to effectively respond to the scourge of domestic violence?
Okay, well, first of all, I was with Judge Bonnie Reed years ago, and we started the domestic violence courts and the programs, and that has led to all of this family violence issues throughout the city. I would like to work with the police department. I believe that they need to be educated more on family violence. We need to get some counselors out there to work with them and go with them to family violence calls to make sure that they know what is going on. I believe also that we need to try as hard as we can to prevent these family violence issues because of the scars the children are receiving from being in this court system along with their parents dealing with family violence. So I am totally supporting the city and county getting together, working together, educating police officers more on issues, and the sheriff's department on issues with family violence when they go to the home and see the family violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. Mrs. Minjares.
Thank you. I started my prosecutorial career when I got licensed in County Court Number 7, which specialized in domestic violence cases. That's where I started trying cases. I saw firsthand, that's where I met Patricia Castillo. The problem has not gotten better. It's gotten worse over the years. I firmly believe what's missing is the fact that we are not putting dollars and funding into preventative measures. We wait till it's too late. So number one, we need to make this a priority of the county and the city. Yes, they need to work together in partnership, but how? We need to create task force committees that work together. We need to ensure that we don't duplicate services. However, at the end of the day, we need to empower and protect victims of domestic violence and abuse. But again, it comes in focusing on preventative measures and making sure that funding is effectively put towards it.
Thank you, Mrs. Minjares. Mrs. Gonzalez.
Thank you. So working in the mayor's office for the last 4 years, I was fortunate to see what city and county collaboration look like and what they do for the community. So I want to continue the domestic violence collaboration that was put together with our city and county partners. And that means working with those partners day in and day out. So whether it is the court proceedings that take place, it's victim services, it's the prevention programs that we're offering, we need to make sure that those are keep going and come to Commissioner's Court, come to a council committee to give updates on where we are. We know that we have to pivot at times. If something isn't working, we have to stop doing it. And if something's working, we have to find all the resources to keep it going. So that's what I want to make sure. And I think our mayor, our current mayor, has that top of mind. I think our commissioners' courts do. So it's continuing the work in those efforts because they aren't going away. They're generational issues that we're facing. And as long as we're working together with community partners, our medical care facilities, our nonprofits, that's how we're going to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next question is going to start with Mr. Ponce. And Mr. Ponce, projections are that a city the size of Austin will move into Bexar County by 2040. They will move not only into Bexar County, but also suburban cities like Universal City, Live Oak, etc. How will you prepare for these new residents?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. Projections are that a city the size of Austin will move into Bexar County by 2040. They will move not only into Bexar County, but also suburban cities like Universal City, Live Oak, etc. How will you prepare for these new residents?
Okay, first of all, I think we need to go ahead and make sure that the housing industry is up to date, that we're creating more housing to house these people. And the city, I believe, needs to work on the park revenues to make sure that there's greenways for these people to attend and to go to and walk, exercise, take their dogs. But I believe that we should need to focus on housing, making sure that we continue to build to make sure that there is enough housing for these people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. Mrs. Mijares? Is it on? Jim, is Mrs. Mijares' mic on?
Is it working? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So the state of Texas always prides itself in wanting everybody to move to Texas, right? We say, hey.
Okay. So if you'll stop and we'll restart, if you can just switch out her mic. Okay. Ready?
I'm good. Okay. All right. Starting again?
Yes.
Okay. So the state of Texas always prides itself in attracting businesses to move to Texas because we have great policy. We want people from California to come here and set up shop. At the end of the day, we haven't planned for the growth that's happening in Texas. We don't have the adequate infrastructure. We don't, traffic is out of control. The growth is unsustainable right now. So it's going to be very critical, the role that the county plays, because as you know, the city of San Antonio can't annex like they used to do. So the county is going to be in charge of that growth. So we need to be smart about it. We need to be sustainable about it. And we need to work collectively with the surrounding counties, all 26 of them, and work collectively to ensure that we can manage that growth and ensure that, that we can handle this growth and do it in the right way.
Thank you, Mrs. Mijares. Mrs. Gonzalez, do you need me to repeat the question or do you have it?
Go ahead.
Okay. The question is, projections are that a city the size of Austin will move into Bexar County by 2040. They will move not only into Bexar County, but also suburban cities like Universal City, Live Oak, etc. How will you prepare for these new residents?
So I think we need to foster a housing market that is affordable for families to call Bexar County home. I think we have a housing scarcity problem that we have addressed at the city and county. We've acknowledged that that's an issue, and now it's time to implement programs that help us meet those housing demands. I think it's investing in our infrastructure, leveraging our federal and state dollars to make sure that we have the roads, the highways, and bridges needed for the growth that we're going to experience. And housing affordability is what folks come here to come to Texas for. They come to San Antonio for that affordability, and we need to make that happen by increasing our housing market.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. Mr. Sagai, do you need me to repeat the question, sir?
Please.
Yes, sir. Projections are that a city the size of Austin will move into Bexar County by 2040. They will move not only into Bexar County, but also suburban cities like Universal City, Live Oak, etc. How will you prepare for these new residents?
Great question. We know that the economy is growing about 7% per year. We know that by 2040, we're going to have about 1 million more people. So the challenges to the County Commissioners Court are going to be immense. My platform is developed on economic development, education, infrastructure, not as separate silos, but all integrated. Economic development is, what does the Commissioners Court do? They provide tax incentives to help bring in corporate headquarters, right? Cybersecurity, technology. But let's not forget that we should also protect our service and labor employees and make sure that they have a living wage. They get benefits and make that part of the incentive so that we can continue in economic development, education. we've got to make sure county's not responsible for education, but we got to make sure it works for all students in all parts of our county. And finally, infrastructure. It's not just roads and sewers and water lines. It's about social welfare for our community. And we've got to deal with the inequity and the disparity that we have in our community. We must make things work for our county.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. Our next question, we will start with Mrs. Minjares. Bexar County has a joint opioid task force. Do you believe that this is a public health crisis? And as judge, what would your role be in the task force? If you'll pick up the next mic, I'm so sorry.
Mine's working.
Hold on, I got it, thank you.
Always.
All right, well, I don't think it's a public health crisis. I know it's a public health crisis. I served on the House Opioid and Substance Abuse Committee. I was appointed by Joe Strauss on that committee and studied the issue for quite some time. I will continue playing a role. It is definitely one that is affecting our families. We have a court case going on. We need to get a settlement agreement going. We need to get that money so that people can get the help that they need, the recovery that they need. It is definitely a priority. I've been there. I know the issue, and I will continue.
Thank you, Mrs. Mijares. Mrs. Gonzalez, do you need me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay,
For those watching.
Bexar County has a joint opioid task force. Do you believe that that is a public health crisis? And as judge, what would your role be in the task force?
Yeah, I do think it is a public health crisis and something we saw more of during this pandemic. Folks were in their homes for 2 years trying to survive every single day. And that enables certain addictions for folks. We know that it does. Again, it's about meeting those challenges. As a county judge, as a commissioner's court, we have to meet those challenges head on. So with that task force, making sure that they have an open door to commissioner's court and to the resources that they need. That means bringing in the task force for regular updates, maybe taking them to council committees, city council committees for regular updates, again, showing the coordination between the city and county. So again, it's just working with the partners and that task force, our local health partners, our nonprofits, folks that are on the ground working with these issues every day. As a county judge, we don't have all the answers, so we need to bring people to the table sooner than later. Thank you.
Mr. Sakai, Bexar County has a joint opioid task force. Do you believe that this is a public health crisis? And as judge, what would your role be in the task force?
Opioid crisis has taught us is that addiction is a disease. What I've been doing for the last 26 years is holding a family drug court and helping putting families back together and dealing with the biggest issue in our community, and that's drug and alcohol addiction. What has that taught us? It's taught us that we shouldn't be locking them up. We shouldn't be using our criminal justice system to deal with a disease such as opioid addiction. And understand that was part of the big pharma. That's the reason why there's a lawsuit on there. And there's going to be monies coming down for that. So what does that mean? Let's not use that money for building a bigger jail or to house more people or to criminalize people who have addiction. We have learned that if you get people clean and sober and you deal with the trauma and you deal with domestic and family violence, you can put families back together. And that's what I've been doing for the last 26 years.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. Mr. Ponce, Bexar County has a joint opioid task force. Do you believe that this is a public health crisis? And as judge, what would your role be in the task force?
Hello? Yes, I do believe it is a big issue here in the city and county. I actually am involved in that if through community involvement through a church. I believe that we need to help fund churches to work with these people. I believe that that is the best way to get them with God, get them right, get them on track. We need to get counselors to work with these churches. We need to get people working together in the community to help these people. I see these people daily. They're homeless. So we need to help the homeless to get back on track. Some of them just need a boost just to get back on track. I've seen it for years where we go into the community and we work with these people. And of course, I would totally be involved with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. And now we have a question from San Antonio AFL-CIO President Tom Cummings that will be read by Bexar County Young Democrats President Nicolette Adiente.
Excuse me for one second. I just need to running around. So thank you again, candidates, for being here today. The question I have to ask for you: would you support a county policy that requires that any company that benefits from taxpayer dollars, contracts, tax abatements, or any other form of subsidy pay its employees at least a livable minimum wage and provide health insurance and pension benefits to employees? Please explain your answer. I will first ask Ms. Mesa Gonzalez.
Yes, I do. I think a prevailing rate wage helps our community in more ways than just the person that's working. That obviously goes to their families, it goes to their children, it helps them afford healthcare, education, extracurricular activities that they're attending. So absolutely, yes, I think prevailing wage is something that we need to have in our community and make ourselves a stronger family, excuse me.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Sakai.
Well, I believe I answered that question when I told you about my platform of economic development, education, and infrastructure. I committed to that, and I'll commit again on this question to answer this question again. But let me go a little deeper in regards to what I believe is crucial, and that is tying the education system, the public school system, our educational system, to the workforce, to college. We know that not all students are going to go and matriculate through college and get a college degree. But what we need to do is create a cradle to career pipeline. And that's what I did with our college-bound docket at the courthouse. That's an example of the innovative programs that I created in order to get our foster children prepared at the middle high school level and get them up to speed, get them ready for college if that's what they want, or prepare them for workforce. And we know that we have a workforce program with our Alamo College District that's the best. And so what we need to do is break these silos to make sure that we benefit all our children and all our families.
Thank you. The same questions, Mr. Ponce.
Hello, okay.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. Would you support a county policy that would require that any company that benefits from taxpayer dollars, contracts, tax abatements, or any other form of subsidy pay its employees at least a livable minimum wage and provide health insurance and pension benefits to its employees? Please explain your answer.
Okay. First of all, I'm the labor liaison for the AFL-CIO Retirees Council and also a member of ATU. But for over 30 years, I've supported that issue. I've worked with labor to try to get the county commissioners to make sure that that happens. I think it's wonderful that the Bexar County now pays its wages like $15 per person to start, which is wonderful. I believe that wages for people that are supported by the tax business that they are paid minimum $15 to $18 an hour to start. And I do support that issue.
Thank you. And last question for Ms. Minjares.
We've had a history of some companies coming to set up shop in Bexar County and not doing their fair share of investing and doing right by the So yes, I support a policy like that. Most definitely. If you want to come into our community and you want to set up shop and you want to benefit economically from our labor, I expect that they invest and they do it right and they give a livable wage and they give the benefits, because that's what our community and our neighbors deserve.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we move down to, we start with Mr. Sakai. As we continue to face COVID-19 pandemic, is there anything that you would do differently than the current mayor or county judge have done?
No, I believe we've seen leadership. We've seen leadership through the mayor. We've seen leadership through the county judge. And I think that's the reason why this election is so important. Who succeeds Judge Wolf? And that's the reason why my 26 years as a district court judge, who has had to make really tough decisions in the courthouse. Some people like them, some people don't. But I have ruled on what's called the rule of law. And I think that's what's important for our country and our community. If there's anything that's holding us together in this crazy world that we live in light of COVID-19 and our former president, is that we better hold on to the rule of law. And that's what I want to make sure, that our county government, that our leadership understands the rule of law and makes sure that we are moving forward in a positive way. Occasionally, we're going to have differences with the leadership in Austin, in Washington, D.C., and that's where leadership's going to have to come in. We got to depend on science, we've got to depend on doctors, and we have to do the right thing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ponce, as we continue to face the COVID-19 pandemic, is there anything that you would do differently than the current mayor or the current county judge have done?
Well, I actually got COVID myself. I went to go visit this family where the wife had been put in the hospital because of COVID. And I didn't know that, but they invited me over. I actually got it from the husband. And so I was sick for a whole month. So I believe that we need to educate the community as much as possible. I think the mayor and the county judge have done a great job. I think they did a great job by going against the governor when he said there's no mask to open up businesses. And they were saying, no, we need to go ahead and keep the businesses closed and have people wearing masks. So I think the community needs to be masked as much as possible. And so we just need to continue that. Thank you.
Mr. Ponce. Mrs. Minjares, we ask you the same question. As we continue to face the COVID-19 pandemic, is there anything that you would do differently than the current mayor or county judge in which they've done?
I appreciate the leadership of the mayor and Judge Wolf. Why? Because we didn't have leadership in our governor during this pandemic and this crisis. Without the leadership that they provided, I don't know where we would be. So I thank them. They were bold. They did what they needed to do to ensure that we as a community were taken care of. And they did the work that the leadership of this state failed us on.
Thank you. Mrs. Gonzalez.
So again, I think I answered this earlier. Working in the mayor's office the last 4 years, I was fortunate enough to see the collaboration between the city and county. I think we were very lucky to have that collaboration during COVID. There was a lot of other Texas localities that didn't have that experience. Cities and counties were at odds. And so seeing the mayor and county judge every day at 6:13 p.m. gave folks a peace of mind. And it wasn't good news, right? It was scary, but at least it let folks know the truth. And that's what folks needed to hear at that time. I think in every crisis we learn. So getting our health partners in once we are not over COVID, but definitely more settled than we are now. This is an opportunity to bring those medical partners together and talk about, well, how do we handle the next pandemic? How do we handle the next winter storm? And so again, seeing what the mayor and judge did gave us hope. I think that we can always take our public health to our residents. I think that's important. I think we learned that with vaccinations. We had our vaccination drives.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mrs.
stop.
Gonzalez.
Okay. Well,
This next question goes to Mr. Ponce. What, if anything, would you like to change or improve regarding the university health system?
Well, I think they were doing a great job. I think we have one of the best hospitals in the country. I can't see where I would change anything. I think they're doing a great job in educating the community. I know that they now work with insurance and they're helping as many people to get on CareLink if they don't have insurance. They help people with seniors with their Medicare program. So I think that they're doing a great job. I can't see where we need to go ahead and help improve the system. I think they're doing a great job. Thank you.
Mrs. Minjares, what, if anything, would you like to change or improve regarding university health system?
You know, we're very fortunate to have a university health system and the model that they provide. They're actually, you know, a model for a lot of the state. I will say that what I would want to work with them and collaborate with them on is providing access to those unincorporated areas or areas of the county that don't have access to healthcare, people that don't have transportation, that can't get to their doctor's visits, you know, mothers who can't afford to go get their yearly examinations. So if I can collaborate with them, how do we provide access to those communities that don't have access and cannot get to it? And that's one of the things that I would want to work on with them.
Thank you, Mrs. Minjares. Mrs. Gonzalez? What, if anything, would you like to change or improve regarding university health system?
So I think the UH system is like it was said earlier, is a model for our state and our nation. I think expanding our public health access is important to our region. It's important to expand that access to provide for more economic development to those areas. Folks like to live close to their hospitals. They like to live close to their doctors. Investing in the new updated mental telehealth is important now as we're at home working from home. So making sure that we fund our telehealth systems appropriately and continue to expand our services. Recently, I know the county expanded service in the south portion of our county, and we can do that all over in every precinct. So that would be my goal.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. Mr. Sakai, what, if anything, would you like to change or improve regarding university health system?
It's quite clear from the panel here, our university health system is one of the best, and I want to applaud the Board of Governors and the Commissioners Court for the leadership there. But one of the biggest issues is the failure in Austin for the expansion of Medicaid, and that is the biggest weak link and foundation of healthcare. So we can do all we can to support the indigent care, but unless we get a change of leadership, we're always going to play behind the ball, so to speak. One of the things I would say specifically in regards to what university healthcare system can do is obviously on mental health, especially psychiatric care. I can tell you, dealing with child welfare and foster care and the children in need, that's what they need. They need intensive services. We got children sleeping in the offices. We got children sleeping in hotels and places that we need acute care for these kids. Those are the high needs children, and we have failed them. The state has failed them, and we are, as a community, locally trying to deal with it. So if there's anything I'd ask the university hospital system, let's take care of those foster kids.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. And now I have Cynthia Benton, who is our co-chair from Stonewall Democrats, will be asking our next question, and she will start with Mrs. Minjares.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so in 2020, an extensive survey of the LGBTQ plus community was conducted by Strengthening Colors of Pride, who are a team of researchers and advocates from the Pride Center and Trinity University. Will you commit to reviewing the findings in their extensive report that has or will be forwarded to you? And the second part is, this report documented extensive inequalities in the LGBTQ plus community in economic resources, housing stability, employment, healthcare, and support systems. To remedy that, would you work to adopt some of the policy recommendations, including but not limited to adopting a countywide comprehensive non-discrimination measure, supporting LGBTQ plus affirmative competency training for employers providing services in healthcare, public safety, housing, and economic support, and finally, improving access to funding resources for LGBTQ plus service providers?
Me? Okay. Thank you for that important question. So I will tell you, number one, send me that report. I will read it. Number two, I have been a fierce advocate for the LGBTQ community at the Capitol. Whether it was fighting against the bathroom bill, whether it was, protecting our trans youth who want to participate in sports. We have so many critical issues in the state of Texas, like, our failing grid, so many things like the failure of Medicaid expansion. But unfortunately, the LGBTQ community is always targeted at the Capitol. You have my commitment. I will support the LGBTQ community. I have fought against discriminatory policies against that community, and you have my full commitment that I will be there in partnership with the community.
Okay, the same question. In 2020, an extensive survey of the LGBTQ plus community was conducted by Strengthening Colors of Pride, who are a team of researchers and advocates from the Pride Center and Trinity University. Will you commit to reviewing the findings in their extensive report that has or will be forwarded to you? And the second part is, this report documented extensive inequalities in the LGBTQ plus community in economic resources, housing stability, employment, healthcare, and support systems. To remedy that, would you work to adopt some of the policy recommendations, including but not limited to adopting a countywide comprehensive non-discrimination measure, supporting LGBTQ plus affirmative competency training for employees providing services in healthcare, public safety, housing, and economic support, and finally, improving access to funding resources for LGBTQ plus service providers?
So my short answer is yes. There's a lot of questions. But yes, I'm actually, when I worked in the mayor's office, I helped manage the mayor's LGBTQ commission and the Strengthening Colors of Pride report that was done. We're very fortunate to have universities like Trinity and nonprofits like Pride Center who work every single day for our LGBTQ community. And they don't stop. They go day and night and fight for LGBTQ rights at the city level, at the county level, at the state level. And so we're very fortunate to have partners like that in our city. So yes, absolutely committed to reviewing that report, making that a priority, leaning on the commissioners who have led on these issues. We have commissioners on court now that feel the same way about LGBTQ rights. And so making sure that this is something that as a commissioner's court, we prioritize. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sakai, would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. In 2020, an extensive survey of the LGBTQ plus community was conducted by Strengthening Colors of Pride, who are a team of researchers and advocates for the Pride Center and Trinity University. Will you commit to reviewing the findings of their extensive report that has or will be forwarded to you? And the second part is, the report documented extensive inequalities in the LGBTQ plus community in economic resources, housing stability, employment, healthcare, and support systems. To remedy that, would you work to adopt some of the policy recommendations, including but not limited to adopting a countywide comprehensive non-discrimination measure, supporting LGBTQ plus affirmative competency trainings for employees providing services in healthcare, public safety, housing, and economic support, and finally, improving access to funding resources for LGBTQ plus service providers?
I too would say yes to all. But let me go back as to what I've been doing for the last 26 years as a district court judge and dealing with these specific issues, dealing with the LGBTQ plus IA community. For the last 26 years, I was willing to hear the gender marker cases, meaning children who wanted to be transgender and change their gender markers, to have name changes. In those 26 years, if you really go back, those were times that some judges would not be willing to hear those cases. I did. I was willing to because it was the rule of law. They had open access to the court. I also embraced in our foster care system same-sex adoption. And the studies, and I understand there's discrimination, there's continue to be issues involving the LGBTQ community, but I will tell you, in regards to same-sex adoptions, I embrace that, and San Antonio has the highest per capita of same-sex adoptions. There's no accidents to that. And that's because I have treated that it was open access, and I will always embrace equality.
Thank you. Mr. Ponce, would you like me to reread it?
Please.
Okay. In 2020, an extensive survey of the LGBTQ plus community was conducted by Strengthening Colors of Pride, who are a team of researchers and advocates from the Pride Center and Trinity University. Will you commit to reviewing the findings of their extensive report that has or will be forwarded to you? And the second part is, this report documented extensive inequalities in the LGBTQ plus community in economic resources, housing stability, employment, healthcare, and support systems. To remedy that, would you adopt some of the policy recommendations, including but not limited to adopting a county-wide comprehensive non-discrimination measure, supporting LGBTQ plus affirmative competency trainings for employees providing services in healthcare, public safety, housing, and economic support, and finally, improving access to funding resources for LGBTQ plus service providers?
Yes, yes, yes. You will actually see me at the Pride Parade. Throughout the years, I've attended the Pride Parade at Stonewall Democrat meetings here and there. I have friends that are lesbian, gay, transgender. So I'm involved in the community, and I appreciate and respect everybody. I'm non-judgmental. I believe that we need to go ahead, and as part of my platform, I say we need to go ahead and hire the LGBTQ community, along with people of color, along with Jews and Asians here in the county and the city. We need to go ahead and make sure that everybody is allowed to work there in the city and county. I believe that I would like to see a major fund for youth that are having issues with being gay. Thank you.
Thanks, all of you, for responding to the questions. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Benton. Okay. The first question is going to go to Ms. Gonzalez. The county received over $300 million in federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. How would you prioritize the allocation of these dollars to best address community needs?
No. Yes. Hi. Okay. Hi. Thank you. So can you repeat the question?
Yes. The county received over $300 million in federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. How would you prioritize the allocation of these dollars to best address community needs?
So we went through this as Chief of Staff for the Mayor's Office. We addressed this through our first round of federal funding through our CARES funding, and prioritized workforce development, the digital divide, healthcare, and small business support. So with this new wave of money coming in, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to do something big with our county and to invest in the services that we know are struggles in our community. I think the paper has done a really good job of highlighting the struggles that we've seen in our community in the last 2 years. And those are things that we shouldn't be embarrassed about. Those are things that we meet head on. Those are the challenges that we meet head on. And so investing in housing is a priority, investing in our childcare, investing in mental health programs, again, making sure our public health is accessible to everyone in this county. Those are priorities that I would have for that money, $300 million.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. Mr. Sakai. The county received over $300 million in federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. How would you prioritize the allocation of these dollars to best address community needs?
Well, before I left the district court bench, that was a discussion that was being had among the Commissioners Court and Judiciary. So first and foremost, I want to focus it on the children and families of our community. It's been touched upon. You know, it's dealing with domestic and family violence, and the Commissioners Court has allocated monies along with the city, and we're going to have to continue to build those programs. We're going to have to build it, obviously, from a prevention perspective. And so we also have, and it's been pointed out, workforce, healthcare, housing. But I believe what we need to make sure, and that's what I want to pledge and promise to the voters of Bexar County, is that we're going to be child-centric and family-focused. We got to do what's right for children and families. And when we have the opportunity that ARPA and the CARES Act has provided us, let's make sure that we're not allocating it to those that, you know, for economic development and providing tax incentives or tax abatements or whatever. They're necessary parts of economic development, but let's take care of our children and families.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. Mr. Ponce, the county received over $300 million in federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. How would you prioritize the allocation of these dollars to best address community needs?
Okay, first of all, I would like to see a big chunk of this money going to help and get the homeless on track through drug and alcohol programs, getting them educated, helping them get back on track. Secondly, I would like to see this money going to the reentry program to help people that have been incarcerated get back on their feet, get on the right track, get them going. I know that we need to also work on housing to make sure that our community is housed, and also on programs like family violence. That is like a big issue with me. That is part of my platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. Mrs. Minjares, the county received over $300 million in federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. How would you prioritize the allocation of these dollars to best address community needs?
The ARPA funding is so critical. I was the vice chair of a committee for the state of Texas that determined where the ARPA funding went in the state. So one of the most important things you all need to know is that it's very restrictive on where that money can be spent and where it cannot be spent. But you have to ask yourself, who are the people that have been hurting because of this pandemic? We got to think about our essential workers. We got to think about getting them the hazard pay that they're entitled to. We got to think about those victims of domestic violence and child abuse. We also got to think about reskilling and thinking about reskilling our workers and our displaced workers. But also what's really critical is the mental health issue and how we fund mental health in this county, because it is severely underfunded. So those are just some of the issues, and as well as a digital divide and the need to expand our broadband for educational purposes.
Thank you, Mrs. Minjares. Thank you so much. So now the next question I move to is, we'll start with Mr. Sakai. As a county judge, what would you do to improve access to the ballot box for voters in Bexar County?
Well, for one, we're going to have to deal with those voter suppression laws that are currently on the books. And obviously, we have a court system, hopefully it's going to address that. One of the things that's really bothered me on these like mail-in ballots that are being dealt with now is the fact that not only are the elderly, the seniors going to be suppressed, but it's also going to be the disabled, people that have lack of access. And you know what? One of the things that I'm really bothered by is the fact that people are going to have to share their private information like driver's license, social security numbers, on and on. We've got to deal with it. That's a legislative function. I'm hoping our court system under the rule of law is going to deal with that and get rid of those restrictions, and that we will have truly open access. We have learned that when we encourage people to vote, then we will have robust debates like what we're having today. People will be involved, and we will hopefully have the best leadership for this county. And that's what I pledge to bring to as county judge.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. Mr. Ponce, the same question. As a county judge, what would you do to improve access to the ballot box for voters in Bexar County?
Well, I worked with T.C. Calvert on the east side when they were closing down a voting area. And I worked with him to make sure that the county didn't close it and that there was access for people on the east side to vote. I believe that we need to go ahead and do more early voting locations throughout the county. I would support that. And for the day of voting, I think that we need to go ahead and make sure that the people are there helping the people that drive up that are disabled, that can't come to the voting box, that they're make sure that they're able to come into the car and let them vote there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Minjares, as a county judge, what would you do to improve access to the ballot box for voters in Bexar County?
I am very passionate about this particular issue because, as you know, I proudly broke quorum with our Bexar County delegation members. I picked up, left my family, and stayed in Washington, D.C. for over 38 days because of this issue and went to the Capitol to talk about how important they needed to wake up and understand that they needed to do something, and hopefully they'll be doing something this coming weekend. But it's very important. It's about access. It's about providing polling locations, especially to the unincorporated areas of the county. It's about expanding voter hours. It's about being innovative. We can look at that policy. We can't depend on the courts. We got to take action. We got to spend funding. We got to use that funding to educate the community about how they can vote, how they can do their mail ballot applications, et cetera. But we've got to be innovative, and we got to actually do something and to educate the community and put the funding towards it.
Thank you, Mrs. Minjares. Mrs. Gonzalez, as a county judge, what would you do to improve access to the ballot box for voters in Bexar County?
So I think we are going to see obviously the impacts of SB1 soon enough. In March, we'll see that firsthand, what that does to our communities. And so as county judge, I want to make sure that we educate our public on what their voting rights are. And that means going to every precinct with the commissioners, with our voting administrator to talk about what these rules mean for them. So again, taking our knowledge, taking our resources to the people of this community to make sure that they know that we need access to more voting locations, right? We need to expand those voting locations. But again, it's important that we communicate that to our residents. And you know, does that mean that we send mail? Does that mean we go out to the communities, work with our local voting organizations that do this work day in and day out? I think it does. And I think our local nonprofits that work on this are wanting to partner with the county in every way when it comes to voting rights, and I want to meet them there.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. And now we have a small business question from a local business owner, Jody Newman, who will be asked by our Bexar County Democratic Party Treasurer, Gloria Gutierrez.
Mr. Ponce, how would you assist local small businesses who were the most impacted by COVID-19 and who probably took on record amounts of debt to keep their doors open? How would you assist them?
Can you repeat the question?
How would you assist local small businesses who were the most impacted by COVID-19 and who probably took on record amounts of debt to keep their doors open?
Okay, I do support local businesses. And I think as county judge, we should go ahead and try to help these businesses by getting them loans that maybe they don't have to pay back, or that they can pay back with a very, very small interest rate. But I believe that we can help them out with funding to continue their business. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Minjares? How would you assist local small businesses who were the most impacted by COVID-19 and who probably took on record amounts of debt to keep their doors open?
Small businesses are the backbone of our community, plain and simple, the mom and pop shops. You know, what I saw because of the pandemic, so many of them were at the mercy of having to shut down and not having real assistance. I mean, there were loans, there were grants, but it was impossible for them to apply for them. It was the money dried up. I think it's important for them to collaborate with the next county judge, I hope with me. But they need to be part of the discussion, and I want to learn from them. And I want to get their expertise and learn how can we make things easier and accessible for them? How can we make sure and give them the resources that they need so they can be successful and they can help the economy in San Antonio thrive? Because we need them to get out of this economic downturn.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez, how would you assist local small businesses who were the most impacted by COVID-19 and who probably took on record amounts of debt to keep their doors open?
So I don't think they probably did. I think they actually did take on record amounts of debts. They had to pivot in ways that none of us have experienced. Then small business owners, I think, I was talking to one the other day, and she said, I employ 30 people. Those 30 people are not just, it's not just 30 folks, right? It's folks that go home to a family. Maybe it's a family of 4. And that the impact that that small business has on our community is not just those 30 employees, it's the families that they go home to, the kids that go to schools here, the kids that want to, in turn, get into small business themselves. So supporting that small business development in our community starts with supporting our small businesses. So making sure that, and small businesses come in every shape and size. We drive by small businesses every single day, and they are so much a part of who we are as a community. We have our San Antonio Hispanic Chamber, the first Hispanic chamber in the country, was started here because of the small businesses in our community. So making sure that.
Thank you. Mr. Sakai, how would you assist local small businesses who were the most impacted by COVID-19 and who probably took on record amounts of debt to keep their doors open?
Well, we know during this COVID pandemic, the city and the county came together to provide financial assistance, and that's one way to make sure our small businesses are protected. But what we need to do as both as city and county government and state and federal is to remember the burden we put on small businesses. I had an opportunity to meet small businesses while on the campaign trail, and they work on the pennies for their profit. And so when we try to increase fees or assess fees because we have to raise revenue, that's where small businesses hurt. And they made it real clear that we need to listen to them. And that's what I'm going to do, provide an open door policy and be transparent to make sure they understand the budget issues. Also, too, we need to develop the workforce program so that, especially in service and labor department, especially the businesses in regards to restaurants and all those type of industries, we need to create a workforce pipeline so that we can get our young people into the workforce and develop it so that they can provide the labor that our current businesses are really needing and hurting for.
Thank you.
Okay, the first question will go to Mrs. Mijares. Mrs. Mijares, how will you address criminal justice reform?
I could talk about this issue forever. You know, I am a former prosecutor. I'm also a former criminal defense attorney. I was one of the House members that began the Criminal Justice Reform Caucus on the state level. You know, we need to institute policies. Number one, stop warehousing poor people. Stop warehousing people that don't deserve to be in jail, like those with mental health issues, those low-level misdemeanor crimes. There's so much work that needs to be done on the policy level. We also have to look at the bond issue as well. Again, so many of the people in our jails are being warehoused because they're poor, they're mentally ill, and at this point, they deserve to be rehabilitated. They deserve to be given the resources so that they can thrive. If they thrive and they're successful, then we thrive as a city, and we thrive as a county, and we thrive as a state.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Mijares. Mrs. Gonzalez, the same question. How will you address criminal justice reform?
I will work with our district attorney, Joe Gonzalez, and our Bexar County Sheriff. They are in these issues day in and day out. And as a county judge, I have to work with our elected officials to talk about what the needs are. And again, face these challenges head on. I think there's a place for folks that are a threat to our community. I think there's a place for folks that are a threat to themselves. Those are mental health problems that can't be addressed in a jail. And so there should be a place for them to go if they are brought in to get treatment, to get rehabilitated, and to get back to working in our communities and be residents that are providing and towards our communities. So working with our sheriff and our district attorney and folks that are dealing with these issues day in and day out, our nonprofits, our community organizations, we have to bring them to the table and do this together collectively.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mr. Sakai, how will you address criminal justice reform?
Great question. And that's the reason why you have to have somebody that understands the system, because it's a process. I help support and work with Judge Ron Rangel on criminal justice reform. And that's where we now have the public defender system involved. We have mental health assessments at the jail. We also have a jail that's better trained to deal with mental health. So yes, we can commit to principles, but it's going to take leadership that understands the process of how the justice system works, the law enforcement works, and how our health system works, especially mental health. We can no longer keep people who are not able to protect themselves, and what we need to do is make sure that we keep these low-level offenders out of our jail. It's costing us too much, and that's the reason why there's this tension in our system. The other system is we've got to get our justice system working again. COVID-19 has wrecked the system, and that's the reason why we have overcrowding at the jail, and that's the reason why we have budget issues at the jail, and it's going to take leadership as a county judge to fix those issues.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sakai. Mr. Ponce, how will you address criminal justice reform?
Well, first of all, I would like to see and make sure that the people that are dealing with mental health are not incarcerated more than a day. I believe that they should be released. Also, I believe that the people who are charged and are incarcerated, that there is a work program where they're able to go to work and come back to the jail at night. I think that will be a great program to institute for everybody, that they're allowed to go work and come back to the jail if they need to be incarcerated. I believe that we also need to get more faith-based people involved there at the jail to help these people to get back on track, to get in their lives going, to help with them with drug and alcohol education. So I believe that we need to go ahead and institute more programs to help all these people get involved with drug and alcohol education to get back on track. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ponce. So now, I'm being told due to time, we're going to have to go into closing. I'm sorry for so many of the glitches that we incurred. I went through the questions that were asked. The majority of them answered have been given throughout your questions. But what we'll do, if it's okay with the candidates, if there's any question that we didn't ask or you didn't hear from, we will definitely ask the question and we can email that blast out to you. So right now, only due to time, and I'm so sorry, and I'm sorry about the glitches that we had, but we have to go into closing so that we give them each 2 minutes. If we do not move on, we won't be able to give each of the candidates the 2 minutes. And so at this time, we are going to start with the closing order in which we did our opening. And so we will do it by our ballot order. And so I'm asking that we start with Mr. Ponce, then Ms. Mijares, Mrs. Gonzalez, and Mr. Sakai. So, Mr. Ponce, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank Ms. Alcantara for doing this today. I'm very excited to have been here. I'm very excited that all of the candidates got together and worked to show the community like what they're about. I'd like to thank all the people who gave their questions and all of the people who attended and all the people who are out there looking at us. I am running for county judge. I have 17 years experience there. I helped put together the juvenile justice courts. It's been over 30 years of positive help to help these young people on track and get on their feet. I was with Judge Bonnie Reed. We started the family violence courts and the family violence programs. That court was modeled throughout the nation. And so we're very proud of that. Also, I started the community service project here in Bexar County where now it's law that anybody who is incarcerated and put on probation, that they do community service hours as part of their probation, which helps people to reestablish their lives and get on track.
Thank you, Mr. Ponce. Mrs. Minjares.
Thank you to everyone who has tuned in today. This is such a critical time. Now that Judge Nelson Wolff is leaving, the next Bexar County judge will be standing on the shoulders of a giant. It is critical that the next leader of this county have the skill set that is necessary, has the bold leadership that is necessary, and understands that this is not a position where you learn as you go. You have to be ready to hit the ground running. I have had the opportunity to get that special skill set at the Texas House of Representatives. I have served on the Appropriations Committee. I was responsible this year alone, this special session that we had, bringing back $1 billion back to Bexar County to fund our educational institutions, to fund our courts, our library services, just to name a couple of things that I helped fund. So it is important that the skill set be looked at. Look at the experience, look at the quality of the experience, and look at the leadership. It is important, like I said, that this next Bexar County judge take the reins, especially after a pandemic and the challenges that we are going through as a community. Leadership, bold leadership, someone that knows the budget, someone that knows the issues, and someone that can work on that policy and get things done. I thank you for the opportunity to be with you this evening, and I hope that I can earn your support, and I look forward to meeting with all of you on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Minjares. Mrs. Gonzalez, your closing.
Thank you to the Bexar County Democratic Party for having us here today and folks that are still tuning in. As county judge, I will bring a new generation of leadership to build on the county's successes and face our challenges head on. I will bring people together to solve big issues for our county, expanding our public health system, working hand in hand with our governments to ensure that we're providing the most for every Bexar County resident, increasing affordability, workforce and economic development, and small business support so that together we can come out of this pandemic stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. Mr. Sakai, your closing.
Well, let me thank everybody here that has come tonight. Obviously, we still live in a very difficult situation with COVID-19. Thank you, Facebook, and the audience there, and thank you for the Bexar County Democratic Party for putting this forum together. I think what you've heard is, some really great talk tonight, and I want to applaud all the panel here for their participation and stepping up to try to be the next leader. But I believe the choice is clear. And so what I hope that you have heard tonight are some of the principles that I have worked with as a district court judge for the last 26 years that I'll bring over as county judge of Commissioners Court. I'm willing to break down silos. I'm willing to be open and transparent. I'm willing to be open in the sense of developing collaboration and to work with and to use data, metrics, analytics in our programs. I've always give dignity and respect to everyone in the court. I am willing to bring in the experts. I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And so let's use science. Let's use experts that, and all the stakeholders that are involved, especially in regards to domestic and family violence. I think what we've heard tonight is that the choice is clear. It's experience, it's wisdom, it's depth of knowledge, it's character, it's reputation. And I hope I've been able to establish that to you tonight with my responses. I want to thank Ms. Minjares for the money she's brought to Bexar County. But in one of those appropriations was the college-bound docket that I explained to you to set up foster youth to the workforce. And so what I'm trying to bring to the point is I understand the process. I understand, yeah, I appreciate the money, but it takes leadership to put programs together, and that's what I've done. And I've produced results in our court system, and that's what I'm going to produce in our Commissioners Court. Real results. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai. And I want to thank all of our members, our audience on Facebook, everyone in Bexar County for tuning in with us this evening. I'm really proud of the panel that we have here. And so I just want to remind those that are tuning in and those that are here is that we are in the midst of our Democratic primary, which we hit the ballot box on March 1st of 2022. So we're asking, it's a very important election. We're asking that all of our Democrats join us at the ballot box and ensure that we are electing in Democrats who are going to fight and work for your interest. And so extremely important. We need to see you there. Voter registration deadline is January the 31st, 2022. There's more information on the Bexar County Democratic Party website and Facebook that we can help you along the way. I also want to let everyone know in regards to the mail ballot applications, there's new changes. And so you must include your driver's license and the last 4 digits of your social when filling out your application for the mail ballots. Again, all this information is on our website. We encourage you to go onto the site and we will help you in any way at all possible. You can always call on to the party for questions if you need help. An informational video will be coming to you shortly in regards to vote by mail, so please be on the lookout for that. Early voting window begins February the 14th through February the 25th. So again, get out to vote. We need everyone out there. So I want to again thank you all for joining with us again this evening. We want to thank our Pastor Mitchell for inviting us and having us into his home. And again, I'm your chairwoman, Monica Ramirez Alcantara, for the Bexar County Democratic Party. Thank you all tonight, and you be safe as you go home. Thank you all.